Hey, welcome to another episode of the Defender Roundtable. We normally talk about politics and that sort of thing, but this week we're gonna talk sports and specifically Deion Sanders and his son Shadur and his son dropping in the NFL draft. So let's without further ado, let's get into it. Rashonda, you and I we've talked a little bit about this offline, and I wanted to get your thoughts on just this controversy and if you feel like what Deion said about his son, about him choosing what team his son should play for or can't play for, if that maybe had an effect on his draft status.
They don't like the big cocky black dude. I am not an avid sports person. I follow a little bit, but I'm sorry. This is just to me. You could say Deion's cockiness led to it, but it wasn't a problem for, say, Baker Mayfield, who got drafted #1 in 2018. It wasn't a problem for a lot of the other people. It's just that to me, it goes back to the Colin Kaepernick. It is all about we like our black dudes in their place. Deion don't stay in his place, and we're gonna show him who's in charge. And Shadur paid the price because his dad is vocal, because he's cocky, and he's not in the place, the nice little box they like to place our black men in. That's just my 2 cents.
I mean, but and to your point, yeah, you're probably right. But I mean, here's the issue I think that a lot of people are asking is, I mean, should Shador have had to pay the price? I mean, because this was a heavy, steep price if that was indeed the case. So I wanted to ask you as a father, I mean, how do you feel about, maybe writing checks that your kids are going to have to cash?
Well, that's how I'm looking at this issue as, from a father's perspective. You're a father, Terrence, and you can't stop talking about your children. You love your children, as do I. And I'll never forget, there's a report that came out in 2015 that the CDC did. CDC ain't never been a friendly institution to black people, but their research showed, uh, contrary to all the negative words about black men not being good fathers, that from every metrics, black men were equal to, and in many were far superior to other fathers in terms of showing up for their children. And I'm saying all that to say, from my perspective, because Deion has raised his children in the public eye. And I don't know the brother, but from what I see, he absolutely loves his children just as much as I love mine and as much as you love yours. And I don't know any father that has done everything right. I know I have made decisions that I thought were going to work out in the best interest of my children, and they didn't. And I feel bad for that, but it's not because of a lack of love. And so if his words had any impact on that $40 million price tag that some people are saying his son lost out on, it wasn't because of a lack of love. He's trying to do the best thing for his child, just like every black father that I know is trying to do for their child.
Laura, what's your spin on this? I mean, what's your take on how this all transpired?
Well, for me, I'm a bit indifferent. Um, for starters, and tell me if I'm wrong, during the draft, right, the NFL teams weren't necessarily looking for a starting quarterback, right, except for Tennessee and New York Giants. Is that what they're saying out there? Because
And the Cleveland Browns, my Cleveland
Cleveland
Browns,
Browns.
In New Orleans
Sorry.
Do the
Saints.
Browns count though?
the New Orleans
Okay.
Saints.
All right. And so I'm presuming that, all right, if you're looking at him as a prospect, um, did his behavior in the whole entire process, it looks like he seemed to he fell short, right? Because if I'm going to do if I'm going to go for a job for Google or Facebook and I'm out here saying, yeah, well, you can check my resume. Yeah, check that. And I'm coming
Right.
out here. I mean, this is Google and Facebook. I still gotta show up. I still gotta look like I'm a prospective employee, that I'm ready for the job. And you're talking about being a quarterback. So I'm presuming, is that how are you behaving during the process? And you're dealing with the NFL. This is a big giant. So I'm thinking about that from that perspective. And also, I'm reading about what NFL scouting executives are saying, and they're saying that he overshot his value heavy. And so that is what I'm trying to see it from. Like, yes, maybe his father may have played a role, but then as a player, how are you moving in the process is where that's where I would like, that's where I'm seeing it from.
Okay, cool. And Jacques, now we want to talk to you a little bit because you spent a year immersed in that culture as you put together your biography, called Coach Prime. So you got a chance to spend a lot of time with Deion. You got a chance to see him, interact with his children and see the love and care. And so, were you surprised at all when you heard what he said on the Tamron Hall show, and then in subsequent interviews about not wanting his son to play for certain teams?
Knowing Deion, I wasn't surprised, but I don't think it has anything to do with any of that, man. I mean, the NFL has hired people who have been accused of sexual assault, who have killed people by accident in vehicular homicides. The NFL cares about one thing and one thing only. Can you play? And the people who are the decision makers decided he couldn't play at that level. See, you came out and you said he was projected to go. Who made those projections?
Well, I mean, people who were in the know, and I'm assuming that these people weren't just didn't.
Media made those projections, and media knows a lot, but they don't know everything. And
right.
All you have to do is go and look at where he got drafted. Once they decide, and you can make a case for him not being a first-round pick in terms of he doesn't have tremendous size, he doesn't have a tremendous arm. And once they start looking at the film and dissecting his game, as far as NFL quarterbacks go, he's not an elite athlete. And so they looked at his game and they said, well, he's probably a second-round pick, maybe a third-round pick in this year's draft. And then once you throw in all the behavior stuff, okay, now we don't even want the headache, because when you look at, if you're not going to be a starter in the National Football League at quarterback, other positions, it doesn't matter. If you're not a starter at quarterback, we don't need to hear from you, because we don't need our starter answering questions about you, answering questions potentially about what your dad said. We don't need all that drama. So if you're not going to start, and if you're taking the third round, you might not start, then we don't need the drama. Because if you look at it as of today, if you project who's going to start for the 32 teams this year, 26 of them are first round picks. So if you're not going to start, we don't want the drama that comes with you.
So you really believe though that these owners didn't have a problem with because, and to your point, I mean, like Deion, clearly he thought that his son was going to go higher, or else I'm sure he wouldn't have made the statements that he made.
Deion,
I'm assuming that he talked to some people.
I'm assuming that he didn't.
Really?
Because if he didn't, in my opinion, he might have done the first wave. He didn't do the second wave. He didn't do the due diligence on the second round, because he knows enough people. He can get anybody to pick up the phone when he calls.
Right.
Shadur didn't hire an agent. An agent is a guy or a woman who goes around and says, hey, I'm not asking you to tell me your draft strategy, but where you got my guy going. You see him as a first round pick, you see him as a top 5 pick, you see him as a second round pick at the top of the second round, you see him as an elite starter, you see him as a fringe starter. Where you see my guy? And what happens is, yeah, somebody can lie to you, but as an agent, your job is to go talk to all those teams that looking for a quarterback and bring back a consensus. That's why you don't mind accepting that invitation to the draft. Oh, I've talked to the general managers. You're going in the top 5. You're going in the top 10. You'll be a first round pick. They didn't do that due diligence in part because they didn't hire an agent. He's got a great marketing agent. SMAC is a great agency for marketing, but it's not a football agency. And I think they missed out on some information, because had he had that information that, hey, you're kind of a second round pick, maybe early third, but definitely a second round, not a first round, then he probably conducts himself a lot differently during the process, as Laura would say.
Why do you think that they didn't get an agent? Do you think they just thought they didn't need one?
It's probably some arrogance there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because and they would have been right. I mean, if he was slotted as a top 5 pick, as he had been projected, he probably wouldn't have needed an agent.
If you think about it, the top pick in the draft was a black quarterback. The top pick in the last year's draft was a black quarterback. 3 black quarterbacks taken in the top 10. You've had 7 or 8 black quarterbacks taken in the top 10 in the last 3 years. And they're not all wallflowers. They got personalities. Right. They wear jewelry. They got fancy cars. But I think the bigger factor is when Tim Tebow stopped being a starter, Tim Tebow couldn't get a job because I don't need to come in the locker room and have the media swarm over to Tim Tebow asking him questions when he's not playing. That's the same reason why Colin Kaepernick couldn't get a job once, it's because, you can still play, but if you're not starting for us, we don't want this drama around you creating headlines every week. Now, I didn't say that was fair. I just said that's the reality of the situation. And so Shadur fits into that same category. If you're not starting, man, we don't need to get blown out and have your dad say something in Colorado, and then we have to answer it in whatever city that you're in.
So then it goes back to some degree then that, they didn't want any parts of Deion. I mean,
but we know that's if you're not starting. If you're starting, we don't care what anybody says.
So you don't think
I get that. My thing, as a mother of a son, what is the life lessons? Because I am forever talking about making sure that you don't, you're not arrogant, and the people that you step on or you see on your way up, you'll see on your way down. What is the message that you see?
That's a great question, and it depends. To me, it's all about leverage. It's not, it's about leverage. If you have leverage and you can be confident, there's a line between confidence and arrogance, and it's a hard one to fit. And I say this because I look back at my career. I haven't even graduated from college yet, and the Dallas Morning News offers me an internship. And I said, "Oh, when is it?" He said, "Oh, it's a summer internship." And I said, "Oh, I've had 2 of those. I'm not interested in having a summer internship. Thank you very much. Have you got one in the fall?" And the guy said, "No, we don't have them in the fall." I said, "Well, if you had one in the fall, I'd come. I'm not coming to a summer internship." Now, you could perceive that as arrogant because I haven't even graduated yet. And here I am turning down, at that time, the best sports section in America. But it didn't fit what I was trying to do. So I wasn't trying to be arrogant, but I was confident that I could get a job, and I preferred to have a job other than an internship. Even at the Dallas Morning News at that particular time. So you have to the key is managing the line between confidence and arrogance. You should all be confident. I don't really get down with white folks telling us to be humble, because I walk with a certain degree of confidence because I put in the work and I know what I'm capable of doing, which is, I think, how Shadur moves. The arrogance came from, and it's not even understanding. I think that the point is you have to understand the situation. I think the best point I've heard about this with Shadur is and I can't remember who said it because I've read a lot about it this week, as we all have. Somebody said he treated these meetings with all these different teams he was meeting with. He treated them like college recruiting meetings as opposed to job interviews. And if you think about it, when you're a big time recruit, why you want me? I got choices. I got options. You tell me why I need to come play for you. When you're in the NFL, it's the flip side. Why should we pick you? And I think he made a bad play with that, in part because why? They thought he was going at the top of the draft, and so I have all these options when really he didn't.
But even then, you still, even if you're at the top of the draft, you don't really have options, though. I mean, the NFL, I mean, it's pretty much lock, sealed, and done. I mean,
you have options if you wanted the top 2 picks in the draft. Like Eli Manning had options because he's the number 1 pick in the draft.
Right.
Decidedly, like it's not even a conversation. You have those options.
And a lot of people like to try to make the comparison between what Eli and Archie Manning did with San Diego and forcing their way to New York, or even what John Elway and his dad did in forcing his way out of Baltimore, to Denver. But
Right.
but it's different because those guys didn't do it in front of a camera. They did it behind back channels. I mean,
See, it don't matter. Those guys did it. Why? They were unquestionably the top pick in the draft. So they have leverage. When you the top pick in the draft, okay, I'm not playing for you. Now you have to call my bluff, but I'm not playing for you because I'm the number one guy, the number one person. Everybody can't pull that card. Yeah. We've all done some. We've all worked at a place where somebody did something, and they go, "How the heck they get away with that?"
And you're saying that, Shadur pulled that card when he didn't have the power. Is that what you're saying?
Like if you run a company and you got a salesman bringing in $1 million worth of sales, and you got somebody else bringing in 100,000, the $1 million salesperson can do. They can have 2-hour lunch breaks, and the other person's like, "How they get away with that?" Because they bring in $1 million a year. When you do that, you too can have a 2-hour lunch break. Until then,
I think multiple things can be true, though. I think multiple things can be true. I think what you're saying is dead on, but I also like what Rashad was saying, just the whole mentality of the league. League ain't never been black friendly. And you talked about the only thing they care about is winning sometimes.
Talent.
Okay, but hell, the position that these owners and general managers probably get wrong the most in terms of their evaluation is quarterback. So it's really hard to say that, this one, because we project him to be a first round draft choice, second, third, whatever. So, but I think multiple things can be true. I think the league can be as racist as hell. I think that maybe Shadur didn't play his hand right. And I think that, the whole specter of Deion and what he brings to the table, I think all that together has played a part in, that brother's slide from what he thought was going to be a first round celebration ended up being a fifth round disappointment, at least for him.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm not opposed to that. I wouldn't dispute that. It's like your credit report. It's about how much you assign to each category.
Well, this is great. This is a great discussion, guys, and we could keep going on and on with it, but we're gonna cut it off here and just say, if you liked what you heard today, click like, subscribe to our channel, support Defender Journalism, and until the next time, have a good one.